My partner wants to name our child after his recently deceased mother, and I want to leave him because of it. My partner lost his mother in March. Suddenly. She took her breathing tube out of her nose to blow it, and because she was half asleep, she forgot to put it back on and she drifted away. When she was found, it was too late. It was peaceful and honestly is the way I would want to go, with nothing but peace and comfort. I found out I was pregnant 7 months prior. We had a name picked out. After her passing, however, he has decided to take it upon himself to change our child's name to her name. You know when a person gives a name such a bad taste in your mouth? That's what she did to this name. She wasn't a horrible person per se, but she wasn't the best. She had moments where she was wonderful, but most of the time she was, and please don't take this the wrong way because I hate to talk so about the dead, but she was a monster-in-law. She wouldn't take care of herself. She would get taken to hospital, get attention from her children, get back into good health, get sent home, and when things returned to normal and the attention would suffice, she would do it all over again. She needed her children's sole attention, always. She needed to feel important, wanted, needed. It made me feel bad and honestly broke my heart that she felt she needed to do this all the time to get any attention. Now she is gone, and as much as I loved her and miss her, and believe me, I do not want that name associated with our child. I don't want to think about her every time I talk to our child. I don't want the stigma I have towards that name forced onto our child. We have actually argued over it. I have tried to compromise by making it a middle name. I have tried to add a name to it so it's one whole name, but he won't budge. I have told him we have a name already. He won't budge. I'm at a point where I want to leave him because it's being forced onto me and I don't want it. I want our child to have a name that is nothing to do with anyone we know. Our son has his stepdad's name as a middle name. Our daughter has his grandma's name as a middle name, and our oldest has his stepdad's mother's name as a first name. I want this child to have something simplistic and beautiful. I don't want to be reminded of someone who was so toxic to herself it ate away at others. Can someone give me some advice on what I can do? Please, I am at a loss. I honestly don't want to do this with him anymore because of how he is acting. I caved with every other child, but this name I cannot and will not cave on. I love the name that was already chosen. Edit. I am not a doormat. I find it rather cruel a few of you have said that. I agreed on our other children's names before they were born. I need advice on how to handle this without breaking his heart and being respectful and tactful, but also showing him this isn't a good idea. Also, I did love his mother. She was a very damaged individual and made it hard to love her, but I still did. I respected her and cared for her deeply. I find it horrible that's even being questioned. She did bad things, but that didn't make her a bad person, just a lonely, sad person who made mistakes. As for people saying, if a name is a reason to separate, then you are a problem. It's not that at all. It's the fact that we had a name already chosen, and he has now, in the midst of grief, changed it to a name that was never ever discussed. And I feel like I have zero say. It may be hormones prompting this. I want him to heal. I want to heal. Even his sister thinks it's a bad idea. I have him in grief counseling, and she wants to help me with this. We will go together and apart. I will do all I can to stand by him during this process. I will not talk about the name any further with him until he has had some time to come to terms with things. I will continue on with our plans to name her what was originally agreed upon. Thank you guys. Edit. His mother lived with his sister. She was perfectly content as that's what she wanted. As for her problems, she would eat things that were bad for herself and end up in the hospital knowing fully well they would put her there. She was on a strict diet from her doctor because of medical issues. When she would get to that point, she honestly really bad. It ended up being a big fiasco usually. It's a 3-day stint in the hospital with them doing a paracentesis and checking her fluid work. It got to where she was having them done continuously that she ended up getting referred to have them done monthly, and it was determined it was from all the salty food she was eating. She got to points where she would stop going to the table to eat because she wanted to watch the telly and get weak muscles in her legs, so she had issues moving at one point, becoming completely bedbound. Multiple times she ended up in rehab facilities because she got to points that she stopped doing anything and lost mobility, and had to get it back with the help of specialists. Her daughter couldn't force her to do anything, and if she tried, she would get my partner involved to argue with her, so she was stuck between a rock and a hard place. As for names, we both chose the first names, and we both agreed on middle names. It was always a compromise on both of our parts. We always named together, and if it was a name I didn't truly care for as a first name, we used it as a middle name, especially if it had meaning to him. We would find a name that fit with the other name that we both agreed on, so it would flow nicely. As for me being an asshole about children's lives being solely on economic stability, I never stated that. I just stated I am able to afford another, so why shouldn't I? I grew up poor with 4 siblings, and we struggled. I make sure we don't struggle, and I want a big family. My kids will hopefully never know how it was to live off of $50 a month with 4 kids and an adult food-wise. Update. Hello, guys. I know it's been a month, but I wanted to update you guys on the situation since I made my last post. Little backstory if you didn't know my situation. Partner decided to change our daughter's name without talking to me about it after his mother's recent passing, without even accepting a compromise, and I come templated leaving him. Well, guys, a big flip to our story. This whole time it's been confirmed a girl until 2 weeks ago. We are having a little boy. Every ultrasound has been wrong. We went to my final appointment and the high-risk doctor confirmed we all have a little boy due in 2 weeks. It broke my heart to see him shut down in the office. He actually left my appointment. He became distant, so I sat down with him, and we had a talk after our babies were sleeping. I'm going to give our son his mother's surname as a middle name. It cheered him up, but I get it's not the same. Things have drastically calmed down since we got his mom's ashes back. I bought him a beautiful necklace urn for Father's Day, which has his mother's picture and a beautiful quote on it. He can have a little piece of her with him forever. He doesn't know about it yet, but I know he is going to love it. His therapy is going well, as is mine and as is our daughter's. We are all healing very well. We are stronger than ever. Thank you all for the advice, good and bad. Story 2. I'm a terrible wife and didn't understand my husband of 10 years. I, 38F, have been married to my husband, 38M, for 10 years. We dated for 2 years before marriage, but also dated for a year and a half during the end of our college years. My husband is a good man. He works from home as a tech executive. He goes into his office around 7:30 a.m. and works until 6 p.m. every day. In addition to this, he'll do the laundry every week while I'm at work, does most of the cooking, almost all of the meal planning, and spends all of his time with me and his extended family. When he's not working, he spends most of his free time working on projects around our property, small renovation projects. He renovated our entire home himself when we bought it. Improvements to our yard, such as a huge deck, a fancy patio, pergolas, custom wood furniture. He is completely supportive of me, encourages me in positive ways, and pushes me to pursue my interests. I couldn't ask for a better partner. He is a dream come true. My husband does well professionally. He doesn't spend money on much beyond tools to aid in our ever-ongoing renovation projects. He's always been difficult to give meaningful gifts to. For Christmas this year, he didn't ask for anything. When I asked him what he'd like for Christmas, he told me that he didn't need anything. This is his default response for any gift-giving occasion. His birthday, Christmas. He's asked me in the past to specifically not give him anything for Valentine's Day or our anniversary. This has always made me want to put in more effort. But the truth is that the more effort I put in, the less he seems to like whatever I give him. He tells me he likes whatever I give him, but his smile isn't authentic and he doesn't really seem to express any interest in most things I give him beyond the moment, as if the interest he expresses is more appeasement. He doesn't own much beyond tools and a not collectible sneaker collection. He just likes relatively mundane sneakers and books, most of which are work-related. Before his birthday this year, I asked him what he wanted for his birthday. I don't need anything. I mulled this over, and then I fell down a rabbit hole on the internet about relationship advice. This led to me going back to him and asking him what he'd like to do on his birthday. He said he had a lot of chores to do and was hoping to spend his birthday, which was on a Sunday this year, completing a couple of house projects. I wasn't satisfied with this after considering it for a while, so I later asked him, what would be a nice thing to do on your birthday? He looked at me for a moment and started talking. We live on Long Island, NY. On the South Shore is a series of bays and barrier islands that are set up as beaches. There's a causeway that connects the main island to the beaches on the barrier islands. We visit the beach several times a week in the summer driving over that causeway. He said that he thinks it would be nice to drive across the causeway early in the morning before the road got busy, to drive slow to enjoy the view. He's always the driver, and it's difficult to appreciate the view when trying to keep an eye on the road, and that he always wanted to be the passenger so that he could focus entirely on the view of the sun coming up over the bay and the Atlantic. Then he just smiled and turned his focus back to what he was working on. We've driven over that bridge maybe 1,000 times together. He's always driven. I felt like an absolute asshole. The morning of his birthday, we woke up early, made some coffee, and I drove him over the causeway to the beaches and back. I drove slow, and he stared out at the view on both sides of the car. When we made it back over the causeway, he asked if we could do it again, and so we did. And when we made it off the causeway the second time, I asked if he wanted to go again, but he said no, that he was hungry and wanted to go home. I don't know if it was my imagination or not, but I thought he looked happier that day than I had seen him in a long time. He busied himself working on the deck, and I closed myself in the bathroom and fought off sobbing. Because all he wanted for his birthday was to look at the water, and I got him another fucking watch that he'll put with all his other watches and never wear. I got him a watch because I don't know the man I've been married to for a decade, who I have spent over 15 years of my life with. The next week I asked him what would be a nice thing to do on Saturday. He said he always wanted to go to the Cradle of Aviation Museum ever since it had its major renovation. I looked it up. It reopened following that renovation in 2002. We were 14. He's basically wanted to go there his entire life and hasn't made it. It's 20 minutes away from where we live. When I asked him why he never went, he said he'd been busy with work, so I took him to the museum. I knew he always was interested in aerospace. His father and grandparents were all involved in that industry. When we got home from it, he went to work on our new planters out back, and I couldn't stop myself from sobbing in the bathroom. With Father's Day coming up, I asked him what would be a nice thing to do on Father's Day. I always give him a Father's Day gift from our dog, and we have people over. I asked him what would be a nice gift from our dog this year. He said that he thinks it would be nice if we drove out to the National Cemetery at Calverton to visit his father's grave. And he then said he didn't need anything for a gift. When I pressed him on it, he said he's not a father. We don't have kids. My father's dead. I don't have anything to celebrate. And I just broke down sobbing there in front of him. He thought I was upset about not having had kids, but truth is that we never prioritized it, and it was too late medically for me when we tried. He had always taken a whatever happens, happens approach to the topic of parenthood, neither wanting nor not wanting children. But I was upset because in that moment, I realized that he didn't want anything I had pushed on him on Father's Day and had made the mistake of prioritizing him over his feelings. His father passed weeks before our wedding. His father's goal was to live long enough to attend our wedding, but the cancer was too far along. I fed him cake and steak for 10 years on Father's Day, without realizing his thoughts were on the other side of the island at his father's grave. I failed him for our entire relationship. He asks me for absolutely nothing except to not make a fuss over him. And I failed at even doing that.